If you're thinking about getting into scale modeling, you're probably facing the classic question, which model should I choose as my first? And that's a really important decision. Your first model isn't just plastic and glue, it's your introduction to the hobby. A good start can spark your passion, while a bad experience might turn you away from it. In this video, I'll guide you through the best model kits for beginners, what to look for when choosing one, and which mistakes to avoid. It'll be simple, clear, and without unnecessary theory. Let's go. And before we start, let me remind you that I'm using AI voiceovers because I don't speak English well enough. But everything else, script, ideas, all the materials for the video and editing I do myself. So I will be grateful to you for subscribing to the channel, like, comment, and if you have the opportunity and desire to become a sponsor of the channel. Your support is very important and motivates to produce new videos. And now, to begin. The first thing to decide on is the theme. This is quite obvious, so there's no need to dwell on it. Some people love aircraft, others prefer military vehicles, and some are into civilian cars. The choice is yours. But what's far more important is choosing the right scale, as it affects ease of assembly, model availability, and the overall look of your finished project. My experience with scale selection. I personally started with 1/72nd. Like many beginners, I made the classic mistake of choosing a model based solely on its attractive box art. My first kit was a truck by ICM. After that, I built a few more trucks from the same brand, then experimented with different kits from various manufacturers. But to be honest, I consider my real start in scale modeling to be when I switched to 1/35th. My first kit in this scale was a Zvezda armored car. This was the first time I tried painting and even using pigments. Sure, I got torn apart by criticism on forums, but this experience motivated me to improve. My second 1/35th kit was a Zvezda BMP2, and believe it or not, I built it well enough to sell it for $10. That was the moment I realized 1/35th is truly the best scale for military vehicles. Which scale should beginners choose? Military vehicles, 1/35th. Some may disagree, but my experience tells me that working with 1/72nd is much harder than with 1/35th. In smaller scales, parts are so tiny that you either create a masterpiece or end up with a poorly assembled toy. There's no in between. 1/35th is much more beginner friendly because the parts are larger, making assembly and painting easier. Aircraft. The situation is slightly different for aircraft. In this case, 1/72nd is often a better choice than 1/48th, and here's why. 1/72nd, a great choice for beginners. The models aren't too large, but still have enough details to be interesting. They also take up less space and are generally more affordable. 1/48th provides more detail and is easier to paint, but the kits are larger and require more storage space. Civilian cars, 1/24th. This is the standard scale for cars. The assembly is relatively simple, but painting can be challenging, as smooth, glossy surfaces require precision. Civilian cars also come in 1/35th, 1/72nd, and other scales, but 1/24 remains the most common choice. Final summary. Military vehicles, 1/35th aircraft, 1/72nd civilian cars, 1/24. So if you're a beginner, I strongly recommend starting with these scales. It will make your modeling journey much more enjoyable and frustration-free. I didn't cover civilian aviation or naval modeling, because throughout my modeling journey, I've only built one ship and one civilian airplane. In fact, I never even finished the airplane. I just didn't have enough experience at the time. So I won't give any advice in these areas, since I'm not knowledgeable enough about them. However, I do find them interesting, and I even have plans to build a diorama featuring an abandoned airplane or ship in the desert. Hopefully, I'll find the time for it one day. But how do you choose the right model from this vast selection without accidentally getting a kit that's too difficult or an outdated re-release from the 70s? Stick to reliable brands. If you're new to the hobby and unfamiliar with the details of the industry, it's best to stick with trusted brands like Tamiya, Italeri, Heller, and Airfix. By choosing these, you're more likely to get a decent kit with good detail and manageable complexity. Which brands should beginners avoid? Mini Art and Border Model. These are top tier difficulty wise. And if you unknowingly pick a full interior kit, you might as well quit the hobby before even starting. Building an interior tank from Mini Art or Border Model is like playing a video game on the hardest difficulty with zero experience. These kits are amazing with exceptional detail, but definitely not for beginners. Check what's inside. Before purchasing a model, check what's inside the box. Fortunately, in the internet age, this is easy to do. Check the number of parts. The same model from different manufacturers can have vastly different part counts. For example, the T34 from Revell has 229 parts and vinyl tracks, which is a big plus for beginners, as they are much easier to work with than individual track links. Meanwhile, MiniArt doesn't list the total number of parts, but instead mentions the number of sprues. And for their T34, there are 60 sprues. This already tells you how complex the build will be. I also want to highlight Revell's strange difficulty rating system. For example, at level 1, they have this. So don't let level 4 on the T34 scare you. In fact, this model belongs to the starter sets for a beginner. Photo-etched parts. Good or bad for beginners? If there's a lot of it, it's hard to work with. If it's just small, simple details, like fenders on tanks, it's okay to try and learn. Beware of old repackaged kits. Some brands re-release very old molds with a new box. Revell does this a lot. Not all re-releases are bad. The Revell T34 is actually an ICM repackage, and it's fairly modern. But some kits are completely outdated. I once almost bought an old Formula One kit where the wheel spokes were just drawn on clear plastic. It looked awful. Avoid resin and 3D printed kits. Even experienced modelers struggle with resin kits, so beginners should stay far away from them. Read reviews. Before buying, arguments about 100% historical accuracy don't matter much for beginners, but details like part fit, casting quality, and clear instructions are crucial. Buy everything you need up front. When buying a kit, make sure you also get paints, glue, sprue, cutters, other essential tools. If you buy only the kit and then slowly gather the supplies, you might lose motivation before even starting. Most important advice: don't get discouraged if your first model doesn't look like the professional builds you see online. Everything comes with experience. Don't aim for perfection right away. Just enjoy the process. I hope these tips help you make the right choice and stay in the hobby without frustration. I have several videos on my channel about choosing your first model. Links will be in the description. Leave a comment and share your thoughts. See you next time.